Hi guys, my name is Danimal Cannon, and I make music for video games, and I also do sound effects, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. So, one of my specialties, I don't just do this, but I'm kind of known for doing 8-bit styled stuff, and making 8-bit styled sound effects is kind of fun, and it's really interesting because you really have to think abstractly, and I kind of want to show you some of the processes that I use, or at least the mental processes. So here's some stuff I'm working on right now. I'm going to show you an effect and then show you how I made it. So I had to make something called freezing rain. It looked like that. Looks pretty good, right? Not bad. How do you go about doing that? Well, I opened up my little BGB running Little Sound DJ, which is a Game Boy emulator. I actually write music on the Game Boy usually, and I like using that to make sound effects. So, how do I make freezing rain? What does freezing rain sound like? And so I started to think it kind of sounds like plink, like plink, 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 and it's on your roof or your car windshield, kind of like hailstorm or something like that. So I don't know, what does that sound like? I created this instrument. It has a little plink to it. It's really high pitched. It has a really fast decay, and I gave it a little bit extra attack by changing the duty cycle at the very beginning of the note so that it's louder with this 50% duty cycle than this 12.5%, which comes right after that. So it's louder at the beginning, giving it a little bit more attack. Not bad. Now, what am I going to do with this? Well, rain sounds very irregular. It's randomized, essentially. And if I were to just input all these notes, they would sound very regular because this is 16th notes, and they would go dit, 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 dit. And I don't want that. I want something to sound much more randomized, and I could just pick random notes in random places, but even then, sometimes it's hard to get things as random as you want. So I use these D commands, which stand for delay, and they play the note a little bit later than it normally would, and I sort of randomize the values on them. So the notes would kind of, run into each other, or essentially the distances between each note would be very irregular. And so this is kind of what it sounds like. See how there's tones to that, but it doesn't sound musical. And that's exactly the effect I wanted to go for. The other thing I did to make it sound less musical, I have these notes, G, F sharp, and G sharp. Those are all semitones right next to each other because I didn't want a lot of variation. But they still sound musical in the way that they still sound like they're one semitone or two semitones apart, and your brain can pick this out. You're like, oh, these are notes playing. So in order to sort of confuse your brain a little bit, I added a second instrument that alternates kind of randomly interspersed, which has a detuning on it. So it's actually out of tune, and it plays notes in between the semitones. And so these first two notes that play, they're the same note, but they're not actually the same note. One of them is detuned, and this 1C instrument here, all of those are detuned versions, and so it has this very irregular feel to it. And it does not sound like Western 12-tone music that way. And that sounded pretty good, but in order to make it sound even better, I added a second pulse channel. And what I did is I did sort of the same thing, except I changed the delay pattern so that it was very different, and the notes would kind of not line up. And then also I changed the pattern of these detuned notes so they fell in different places. And so when it plays together, it essentially sounds like freezing rain in my mind. It's got those plinky tones, but they don't fall into any sort of musical context. They're more randomized. I'm going to go on to another effect. This one, I had to create a foam effect. I'll show you the animation I had to work with. Okay, so you got some bubbles, you got a little wave there. That's cool. I can work with that. How am I going to create that? So the first thing I'm going to do anytime I'm creating any sort of water or fire effect is go straight to my noise channel. It works really well for that, and high-pitched white noise sounds a lot like water, actually. In fact, if you take brown noise, which is a little bit lower pitched white noise, or it's white noise with the high end cut off of it, and then you modulate the volume up and down, it sounds exactly like the ocean. It's kind of amazing. I've done this in noise generators. It's pretty fun. Anyways, that was the side. High-pitched white noise sounds like water. And what I did is I just kind of used these S commands to sort of add a little variation in the tone of it. But I used it at kind of irregular intervals so that it had, I don't know, just a little variation to it. All right, so that's just some spraying water that has a little bit of variation to it. And that's pretty cool. That works for the wave part. But I also wanted to get bubbles. Now, how do you get bubbles? And I sort of went for that boop, boop, whoop. I don't know. That, like, I don't know why upward pitch bends sound like bubbles, but they do. So this is what it sounds like. So... again, I tried to sort of not randomize like the position of them. I didn't want them to sound musical, but I couldn't use those D commands because I was using these P commands here, and I varied the speed at which it goes up so that they wouldn't all sound the same. I also changed the starting note a little bit just to add a lot of variation because you don't want it to sound you want it to sound random because bubbles are not ever going to be regular sounding. And these pitch bends combined with, just some odd musical positioning when you put it all together. And there you go, you got some foam going on. Yeah, all right. So that's pretty cool. I thought it turned out all right. What else do we have here? We've got Firestorm. And the animation for that is this. And it's sort of like fire raining down from the heavens onto Earth, which is pretty cool, pretty badass. So again, I'm going to go back to my noise channel because I love noise channel for water and fire and Earth. And all right, so the noise channel is actually pretty badass. But how did I create this sound? I will show you. That is the final sound. And I thought those were like fireballs that were kind of raining down on the Earth. And first, to create the fireballs, here I'll create a new sound here, and I'll just make it regular sounding. Let's see. All right, so it turns out this is kind of an odd feature of working in medium. I actually like working in medium because a lot of times you get these happy accidents, things that you program that didn't turn out exactly how you did, but it's pretty cool anyways. So, it turns out once it loops through this white noise, I programmed it to like cycle through it really quickly. So once it loops through all the available shapes of white noise that it can do, it kind of repeats back on itself, which is kind of cool. So this should normally be sounding regular. If I put these kill commands here, it'll be much more regular sounding. But if I remove them, it's going to loop back through. And that's just because the randomly generated effect I have is just causing it to recycle through the same effect. Now I use that. And I added the D commands here to make it more irregular sounding. But then also, if you change the octave here, you sort of change the sound of it a little bit. So if I go down, all right. So that probably all sounds the same to you, but there is a slight difference there in the sound because it's starting from a slightly different place in the white noise sound, and that's cool. So it gives it just a little bit more variation. I just sort of went through all sorts of different ones. So not bad, right? Not bad. I thought that sounded like a cool little firestorm. Let's see what other effects I got. This one is the drill. Now, I wanted to show you the drill because the drill is a good example of when you would want to actually sound very regular, as opposed to all these things that I've been trying to sound very randomized. So this is what the drill sounds like. And that's sounds like a drill. And why does the drill sound regular? Because it's a machine that's going through at a very regular, absolute pace. And for that, all I did was I took two little versions of white noise and wrote a script so that every 16th note, they went in between the two of them. And that effect was pretty easy, actually. And the noise channel has this awesome versatility to it where you can create a lot of different kinds of sounds. And yeah, that's how I created a drill sound. Now, another kind of sound, let's see, this one is like a computer type of sound. See the ones and zeros? Yeah, you're firing ones and zeros and computer shit at them. So what did I do for that? That's what a computer sounds like if it could talk. Maybe. Essentially, all I did was pick garbage notes. I picked the stupidest notes that I possibly could find. Like, it doesn't even make any sense, but I made them very regular time. They're 16th notes because computers have perfect timing, but they're not necessarily speaking in the same musical language that we do. And then I picked more garbage notes, but different garbage notes, and then played them over the top of each other. So, yeah, computers think really fast. They think really regularly, and ones and zeros sound like bullshit notes. And that's kind of how I created that sound. I might end up using that at a later time. Who knows? It's kind of fun coming up with sound effects. Here's a couple of the other ones. I don't know, you know, what is that for? Well, I'd have to show you the animation, but that's like an earthquake. That's a little bit more electric sounding. There's a little bit more of that regular sound. Let's see, that's just a fireball. There's some, I don't know, you know, there's just some examples of some stuff, but for me, it's really fun to create these sounds. You get these sounds that would either be impossible or really difficult to recreate on other platforms, and they have so much character. And it's because you have to approach this problem of abstract imagery and trying to create sounds that sort of invoke these thoughts. And if you go study old games, they're done rather creatively. I'm constantly impressed with that stuff, and I study it all the time. If you're going to be doing sound effect work, I really would recommend learning music theory. That actually helps a whole lot. Let's say like you're looking for a one-up. Well, you're going to want to use a sound effect that might be playing very quickly, but references, you know, maybe the major scale. In fact, if you go to a casino, all of the fanfare that's playing, it's literally just major arpeggios everywhere. And you can get a little bit more creative with it. You know, if you want to be more enchanting, you throw in a fourth and a fifth with your major scale, and maybe a second too. Why not? And it's the same thing when trying to come up with dissonant stuff. If you know your music theory, a lot of times it's easier to come up with interesting dissonant sounding things as opposed to just garbage notes. Although garbage notes are fun as fuck too. So anyways, I just wanted to show you guys a little bit of this. I think it's really interesting stuff, and I wanted to share a little bit of my thought processes and everything else with you guys. So thank you so much. My name's Danimal Cannon.